and the more practical things you give. Hi, I'm Heidi Prather. Welcome to our first live event from the Living Well Center at Washington University School of Medicine. I'm a physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist here at Washington University. I'm the founder of the center, and I'm here today with my colleague and the medical director of the Living Well Center, Dr. Devyani Hunt. We've been a virtual program for a number of years, and the dream of moving into real space has been 5 years in the making. We're very honored to be given the privilege of developing something like an interprofessional program, the Living Well Center, to help patients who have musculoskeletal problems and other comorbidities that inhibit them from making successful changes in their lives towards healthy living. So today we're going to bring you our first program, and we're very excited to do that. I'm here in our new food prep area, and this is not one of those background things. This is real. So it's I can touch it. It's very real. We're very excited to have it. We hope to be doing more programming and live streaming from our event room here. And Dr. Hunt's joining me from the lobby area of our center where we're socially distancing like we should be, but we can still get this really valuable information to you. So today we thought we'd start off with boosting immunity as our topic of interest for most people, specifically during the pandemic. But I think we're going to try to have a conversation between Dr. Hunt and I that'll hopefully introduce you to a lifestyle changes that can help boost your immunity, but also can help boost your general health that can be long-term and far after this crazy corona thing that we're in right now. So Dr. Hunt, can you start us off with just telling us a little bit about, what is immunity? What does our immune system need to do when the virus is out there or just in our normal lives? Can you give us just a little bit of a background of how that works?
Sure, definitely. So when we talk about the immune system, I think we always have to remember that it is very complex and expansive. And there are numerous immune cells that are housed throughout our body, anywhere from our skin cells to our gut to our bone marrow. And these immune cells do a fantastic job at keeping us safe from foreign substances, from viruses, from bacteria. And if we give our body what it needs to make sure that that system is healthy, then our bodies are the best machines at taking care of it. So we can really go back to the basics of how to support our immune system. And I think there's really 4 main areas that we need to focus on. So one is certainly the food that we eat, and we're going to talk lots of specifics about how to boost our immunity, the foods that will help it, but also foods that might actually hinder our immune response that we should avoid right now. The second is talking about sleep and how important that is, exercise and breathing techniques, and then also stress and mindfulness and how that can really play a huge role in improving our immune response. So if we go back to the foods that we eat, it's important to think about how food is processed in our body. And of course, we take it in through our mouth, it goes through our GI system, and our GI system is our first defense against immunity. And so we've got to make sure that our GI system is as healthy as possible. And there has been a lot of talk in the literature on searches and all about our microbiome. And it's important that we know the ins and outs of the microbiome and why it's so important. Our microbiome is actually made out of 30 trillion bacterial cells, which is actually more than human cells. And so those cells have to be fed the right type of kind of food to make sure that those cells can produce substances that keep our GI system healthy. And the best thing that we can give our microbiome and the microbiota, which are the bacteria, is fiber. So fiber is the food substance that allows these cells to make short chain fatty acids. Those short chain fatty acids are really important for our immunity. It actually also gives a signal to our cells all around our body, especially our brains, to tell us that we're full, things like that. So if we can make sure that our microbiome is as healthy as possible, then we are in itself going to produce a great amount of immunity. There's this other something that a lot of people talk about, which is leaky gut. I think it's a bit of a buzzword, but I think it's important that we know what that means. So each of our cells, if you think about the lining of our cells, it's really just one cell deep, and there are junctions between each of the cells, and those cells need to stay really tight together so that they don't allow foreign substances, especially viruses and other bacteria that could harm us, to come in, and even macronutrients. One of those things is like gluten. So gluten is a macronutrient that shouldn't really be absorbed into our body, but when we have a leaky gut, we have these junctions that aren't as tight. And if they're not as tight, then they allow those macronutrients to come in and kind of wreak havoc on our system. But if there's less inflammation, a better balance between the different bacteria that are in our system, then those cells are actually a lot healthier, and they can be our greatest defense.
So Dr. Hunt, we talk a lot about, people talk about diets, and, those of us that have been, on earth a little longer than others, we've seen a lot of different diets come and go. So you talking about, keeping the gut healthy. Is it really a diet, or is it more of what should we incorporate in our diet, and what are those names for those types of things?
Yes, I think of it more like a lifestyle. So there are certain choices that we make every day on what to put in our bodies, of course. And if we think about the things to add more than even the things to avoid, then we can again be healthier. So I like to think about making sure that we're eating a lot of whole food, plant-based foods, and we know that they can be very healthy for overall health, and specifically talking about immunity. So a few of those things that we need to think about are greens. So greens are really the center of our health. There was a great Harvard study that showed that every increased serving of vegetables and greens that we have a 20% reduction of risk of cardiovascular disease, which would include heart attacks and strokes. And right now, as we know with COVID-19, there's a 2 times greater risk of having more severe symptoms if you have high blood pressure and or cardiovascular disease. So if we can decrease that, then we're going to improve our immunity and our ability to fight off something like COVID-19. Within that category of greens, cruciferous vegetables are very important for us because they contain phytochemicals that are powerful immune boosters. And those phytochemicals are, again, can help us with chronic disease, but also infectious disease. So examples of that are broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, red cabbage especially, can be very helpful. So adding just a little bit of that to our diets can be helpful. And sometimes it's nice to have specifics of how to do that. So our dietitian that works with the Living Well Center in Martina Mehta, she tells her patients and our patients about how to add those things into our diet. And specifically, if you're having a wrap or you can add a little bit of cabbage to it. And if you don't love cabbage, even just a little bit goes a long way. With smoothies, you can add spinach or kale, and you don't really taste it very much. I actually use that a lot with my kids, so I hide stuff all the time in their food. So I'll put in their smoothies, I'll put in kale and or spinach. I also put in flaxseed or flax meal, actually, which can be very helpful. Flax meal has omega-3 fatty acids in it, and the specific one is alpha linoleic acid, and that really helps to improve our circulation, decreases inflammation, actually helps with osteoporosis, so it can go really far. The recommendation is for 2 tablespoons a day. So you can get all of it in a smoothie, and then your kids have no idea what you're giving them, and they can be very healthy. So that's helpful. It actually, the other thing about flax meal is that it has protein in it. So those 2 tablespoons have about 6 grams of protein, which can, we always want to make sure that we're getting a full array of our nutrients. Another thing that you could easily add to some of your wraps, salads, even soups, anything that you're cooking would be onions and garlic. They both have a substance in it called allicin, which reduces inflammation. And it has also been shown to have antiviral properties. When you're thinking about that whole group of onions, garlic, chives, scallions, things like that, there's benefits to it when it's cooked, and there's benefits when it's not cooked. So one little thing that you could do to try to improve how much you're getting is maybe cut up some scallions and sprinkle that over things that you may not even think about doing, but would add taste and would add that great immune boosting. So over salads or over a soup, and it'd be the uncooked version of the onion.
Great. What are some things then that we should think about avoiding in our food choices right now?
So I would say two of the main things that we should avoid are processed foods and sugar. So, and we all hear that all the time. Processed foods have a lot of additives that can be harmful to us. It also has a lot of empty calories. So if we're trying to make sure that we're feeding ourselves in a healthy way, making sure that we're eating whole grains over processed food is very important. Many processed foods also have a ton of sugar in them. And so that sugar, there's actually a great study that shows that if you eat a high sugar content food, say a cinnamon roll with breakfast, or even if it's just a Coke, that sugar content will then decrease your white blood cell activity, which is your immune activity, for 4 hours. So if you can imagine having something like that for breakfast, and then you also have a sugary drink for your lunch and or something for dinner, then basically for most of the day, your immune response is decreased. So if we can cut out sugar, we're going to cut out a lot of potential deficits to our immune system.
Right. Well, I forgot to mention at the beginning, any of our friends that are joining us, and we've got people coming to us from all over the country. So thank you to those of those guys who are interested in seeing us from Oregon and Indiana and New Jersey and Florida. And I've got friends in Brazil that are looking in on us today. We really appreciate your support. If you have any questions, you can just put them in the comment section on the Facebook page, and we'll answer those at the end as best we can, and any comments you have on other content as well. So Dr. Hunt, you've done a great job of talking about things we should add and things maybe we should avoid. And I kind of want to get back to that leaky gut thing, because that is a very common thing. We see it in magazines and news articles and blogs, and the impact it has kind of on our whole system and not just our gut. So the impact of when our gut is leaky, what other things are going on in our whole system? Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because we know that 90% of our serotonin, which is our happy mood neurotransmitter, is made in our gut, which we, a lot of us have that feeling that, a lot of things come from our gut, but this really shows us that that happy hormone actually is produced in our gut. So if our cells in our gut are not healthy and they're not processing and making serotonin, then we will feel sad. We will have that increased anxiety and depression. And so if we can again feed our microbiome the things that it needs, then we can have immunity and health in many different ways. So one thing to keep in mind is that fermented foods are very important. It's almost like a feast for your microbiome. And we don't always eat a lot of those types of foods, but we could add it pretty easily, like sauerkraut. Miso. I don't know if you've heard of miso, but it is a Japanese food. And some of the misos that are out there have been fermenting for 3 years, some of them 7 years. So there's a huge variety of bacteria in in miso that can be very helpful for us. And it actually gives a very rich flavor to some foods. You can add a little bit, it goes a long way. Kombucha is another example of that, but you do have to watch out with kombucha because some of them do have a high sugar content.
Right. And that kind of leads us into that important thing we talked about in the beginning, which is, when we were talking about the framework of, okay, we talked about food and how the impact of that and the things that we're feeding ourselves help our body, but they actually help our mood and our well-being as well as how we accept things in that physiological state that we're in. So sleep is a big one, right? And sleep is imperative for us to get restorative sleep, to go through 4 stages of sleep in our cycle at night. And then the neurotransmitter that Dr. Hunt just referred to that's made in our gut is our primary one that helps us sleep and get restorative sleep at night. The first part of our sleep is for us to physically repair ourselves, but the last half of our sleep cycle is geared towards our emotional or behavioral health well-being. So again, what we take in that affects our gut then affects our nervous system as well, that is so important for our overall well-being and health. If we don't have sleep, we also know that it feeds our cortisol system, and the cortisol, which is your own inner steroid that you make within your body, is ramped up. And when we have that ramped up, we have more inflammation. And guess what? We go right back to more inflammatory cells in our system that don't help us with our immune response. Can you talk to us a little bit too, or we can go back and forth a little bit about, we've talked about sleep, we've talked about food, and we can talk about, just mindfulness. That's kind of a common term, but it's really that combat of what's going on with us emotionally, and especially in a time like now. Again, I'll call it Corona crazy that we're all in, and this new lifestyle we're trying to adapt to for at least some period of time. How do we deal with that, and how does helping what you eat for your immune response really help with staying whole or happy in this new environment that we're in?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic as well. Mindfulness, it can be achieved in many ways. And sometimes the physiologic systems within our body help us to attain mindfulness. And one of those is breathing techniques. And I guess that actually, again, full circle as to how our lung functions and improves immunity and mindfulness, but breathing pulls that all together too. So there are lots of different ways to improve blood flow to your brain and to improve the endorphins, which then again give us that happiness feeling. And one of them is breathing. So there's a breathing technique called diaphragmatic breathing, where you use your belly to breathe, and just trying to even take a 4-second deep breath in through your nose while you're trying to expand your belly, and then hold it there for about 2 to 4 seconds, and then release it through your mouth can be really helpful. And that release should be about 6 to 8 seconds. And that alone can help increase blood flow. It also increases lymph fluids that then go through your whole body. And again, that lymph fluid contains immune cells that fight bacteria and viruses. It's a natural painkiller. Those endorphins that we talked about improves energy, decreases stress. And then we know that if our stress is decreased, then our mind is in a better place. We can make better decisions. It all kind of comes together.
Great. And the other thing for their physical people out there, and we're going to get to that about motion, is that when we work our diaphragm with that type of breathing, it improves our posture. It helps us with aches. It helps us with muscle pain and anything else that needs oxygenation. So I think those are great points. So getting to the last part of we talked about the 4 pillars here we were talking about today. The last thing we wanted to mention about was movement. Can you give us advice on that in this time? I am happy to see a lot more people in my neighborhood. Some I didn't know they lived there, because now everybody's out walking at night, which is awesome. But can you give us some parameters around that?
Yes. So the typical recommendation is that we get 150 hours of brisk, moderate aerobic exercise a week. And if you break that down, it's about 20 minutes on most days of the week. You could increase it to a little bit more vigorous and activities and get more benefit, but at least 20 minutes of some kind of moderate brisk walking, anything that just increases your heart rate, which then increases blood flow. If you can, we'd also like to add 2 days of some kind of strength training too. That those 2 things alone can really improve your white blood cell count. So exercise improves white blood cell count. Exercise also improves your quality of sleep. It has been shown to improve or decrease your risk of Alzheimer's disease. It's a fabulous option for us all.
Great. So we've got about 10, it looks like about 10 minutes left or so of our time here together. Can you, I'll start us off, maybe if anybody's got questions, let us know, but can you talk a little bit about supplements? Because we hear about these things we're deficient in, and especially in the United States, we tend to want to use supplements or use that quick fix thing because I don't have time and my life is so busy. Give us your perspective on supplements in general, and then supplements and how we fit them into, healthy eating.
Yes, I think that's a great question. Two things to think about. One is that when we talk about eating whole, we're giving our body the way, the food the way it was intended. So if the more that we can eat the whole food, and the more we can get our substances, our vitamins and micronutrients and macronutrients from the whole food, the better. However, there are a few things that would be helpful, and especially in this time, this day and age, that could be helpful to supplement. So one is vitamin D. Dr. Friedman actually published a recent study looking at COVID-19 and vitamin D. Dr. Friedman is one of the people that did some breakthrough research with Ebola. And so he found that people that were taking vitamin D supplementation and had a higher level of vitamin D were able to fight the COVID-19 symptomatology, the virus, much better than those that had a lower vitamin D level. So the typical recommendation is 1,000 to 2,000 international units a day, and that's of D3. D3, you could probably go up to about 5,000, but we don't really want to take the mega doses of D2, which is 50,000 once a week, unless you're checking those levels, because you can get to toxicity levels with the D2 supplementation. The D3, which is the over-the-counter, I would stick to around 2,000 international units a day.
Yeah, and is there a better time to take supplements? Like this is from someone is asking this, a better time to take supplements, whether it's on a full stomach and beginning of the day, after the day is over? Do you have a recommendation on that?
Most supplements, and some of them are a little bit different, but most supplements you want to take with food, because if the supplement is absorbed with food, again, your body can absorb it the best. Day versus night doesn't matter as much. There are some medications that you have to watch out for, that there might be some time frame in between that you have to think about, but for the most part, taking it with food is best.
Right. And then another question that's out there is about processed food. Is there such a thing as good versus bad processed food? And I think it's specifically in relationship to bread, like the whole grain type bread, which type of bread is okay or seems to be better for our system versus breads that have more processed or have more of a process to them, I guess.
Gotcha. Again, I think I'd go back to the wisdom of our dietitian, Nartana Mehta, who works with us for the Living Well Center. She always tells me to look at the label, and if it has more than 5 ingredients, it's probably too processed. So I think that's a really good rule of thumb. And then the other thing too is that you should be able to pronounce everything that's on the label. So if you can't, it's probably something that is used as an additive and your body probably doesn't like it anyway. To answer your question about the whole grain bread or not, whole grain bread is definitely better than a white bread. A white bread is processed just like sugar in your body. It's white flour, it's flour. So you take the grain and you process it multiple times to get it down to just the white flour. And so the more it is whole grain, the better. There are also sprouted grains out there, and sprouting gives another level of nutrient density that's fantastic. So choosing a bread, I would choose something that's whole grain and sprouted if possible.
And then another question about the frozen, like the veggie and the bean burgers. Do you have a recommendation on that, or things to look for to stay away from? Again, can't pronounce it, don't eat it, but what else?
I would say, I would say with the veggie and bean burgers, again, the things to watch out is how much is processed and additives are in there, but also seeing if there's a lot of oil in it or added sugar, things like that. I would stay away from added oils and sugars and make it kind of as clean as possible. The one thing I'd also say about frozen foods is that fruits are great to get frozen. So sometimes I feel like it's hard to get enough fruit in a day. I've tried to track it myself, and I think of myself as a pretty good eater, but healthy and clean. But I tend to find that I don't eat quite as much fruit, and sometimes because it goes bad, it's hard to regulate at times. But frozen fruit can be a great way to make sure that you're not allowing it to go bad, and you can use it as needed. It has the same vitamin content.
Right. And then one other question about vitamin C, and I think this is I think everybody's asking this question, like, can you have too much of it? It seems to be an important source or an important thing we should have enough of now. Should we be supplementing with it? Can you comment on vitamin C?
Yeah. So vitamin C is a water soluble vitamin, so it's really hard to get too much of it. Again, I would say the best thing you can do is to get it in the whole food form. So that's eating a lot of fruit and vegetables that have vitamin C in it, so mostly fruit. Citrus fruits are the number one thing that has vitamin C in it. And if you feel like you're not getting enough, then supplementation would be okay. But you don't have to worry too much about toxicity since it's water soluble.
Right. And do you know anything, can you comment about zinc as well? Because we've heard some information about zinc.
Yeah, and actually I think zinc's one of those interesting ones because there actually has been a meta-analysis on zinc and its effect on the common cold, and it was found that it can decrease the duration of a common cold by 33%. And zinc is actually part of our immune cells, and so if we don't have enough of it around, then our immune cells won't work as well. So zinc is found in many substances, but people that are on kind of a standard American diet, they probably are a little bit low in zinc. So if you increase to taking in some of those whole grains, root vegetables, legumes, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, nuts, they all contain a good amount of zinc. I would suggest that you be careful about supplementation because you can get zinc toxicity. So to be safe, try to get it as much as you can in your diet. And if you really feel like you have to supplement, then I would only do maybe 15 milligrams 3 times a week or so, just to make sure you don't go too high.
Mm-hmm. And then in general, people who are trying to follow more of a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, are there certain things they need to make sure they do have regularly? They may have to supplement because they can't get enough, or it's hard to get enough in a day if we're busy working and caring for our kids and all those things that we do.
Yes, I would say one of the number one things we have to make sure that you supplement is B12. So B12 is actually made by microbes in soil. And now that we clean our fruits and vegetables so much, we don't get enough of vitamin B12. And so taking a supplement is important. And I usually recommend that people take about 2,500 micrograms a week. And sometimes it's easy just to take one on a Sunday and just know that you're done for the week. Other times people feel more comfortable taking it daily. So you could kind of divide it up and take daily. It's really hard to get too much vitamin B12. So I'd stick with about 2,500 micrograms a week.
And anything else that, we hear about other types of things that we may need, the fish oils versus not fish oils. Can you make a comment on that?
Oh, sure. So fish oils have DHA in it, and DHA is really good for our brain function, nerve function, overall health. Sometimes in our diet we don't get enough of it, so supplementing can be an option. I like to supplement it with more of a plant-based option, which is seaweed. So there are plant-based supplements of DHA, and taking them once a day could be helpful. So if you're not getting it in your diet, if you eat seaweed, you'll probably get enough in your diet. You could also use a supplement. You can also use the flax meal. So flax meal has some DHA in it, and I think it's really helpful to have a shaker of it on my counter, and I just sprinkle it on everything, and that way you can make sure you get enough of it.
That's a great tip. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll do that at home. I'll find
it.
I can put it in. All right. Well, again, thanks for doing this with me, Davy. And obviously, thank you for doing the center with me and introducing this type of lifestyle medicine. As we've said before, you can't unlearn this information and how healthy it can be for you and for your livelihood, for healthy living, and just in general feeling better. I think, do you have anything else you want to wrap up with today?
I think that's about it. So we talked about a lot of good things, from making sure that we're making good food choices and making sure that we're sleeping well. If we sleep well, we'll be able to release the right neurotransmitters, making sure that we're exercising and breathing. And then, don't beat ourselves up. That whole mindfulness is really important. I think we should each day make sure that we're congratulating ourselves for the good choices that we make instead of focusing on the negative.
Right. So hopefully this will be the beginning of future talks we can have like this. Maybe we'll dive deeper into some of those pillars we just talked about. They're kind of the pillars of the Living Well Center in general. Again, very grateful and thankful to Washington University for allowing this dream to become a reality. We can't wait to have people in person to experience the actual space, because it's makes you happy. So thanks again for joining us. And there's a lot of salutations that are going out there right now, which is you see people say, hey, be healthy, be safe, be well. And we're glad you joined us, because we want you to be able to live well better. So thanks again for joining us today.